This documentary contains discussions of real criminal activity, mental illness, and violent acts that may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. This is a factual and educational production and does not glamorize or endorse criminal behavior. In the dimly lit streets of post-war London, two names became synonymous with fear, power, and crime. Ronnie and Reggie Kray, twin brothers who turned the East End into their personal empire. To some, they were protectors. To others, psychopathic killers. They dined with celebrities, shook hands with politicians, and murdered those who crossed them. But behind the headlines and Hollywood films lies a story far more complex, and far more chilling. This is the Kray twins, Britain's most notorious gangsters. Ronnie and Reggie were born in 1933 in Hoxton, East London, a place battered by poverty, bombings, and tough street life. Their mother, Violet, adored them. Their father, Charles, was a man who ducked and dived through life, dodging military service and keeping a low profile. The twins were close, inseparable, really. They did everything together, played together, fought together, and eventually, broke the law together. They were bright kids. Athletic. They boxed at Repton Boys Club and showed real promise. Reggie, in particular, was skilled. Clean technique. Good form. Ronnie, though, he was unpredictable. Aggressive. There was a darkness there even early on. Their future could have been in the ring. But the streets of East London had other plans. By the mid-1950s, the Krays had moved from teenage brawlers to full-time criminals. They started building the firm, a mix of bodyguards, enforcers, moneymen, and hangers-on. It wasn't just a gang, it was a business. They ran protection rackets, shook down local pubs, and inserted themselves into the East End economy. Then came the clubs. High-end venues like Esmeralda's Barn weren't just for profit, they were power statements. Politicians, pop stars, actors, all drank under the Krays' watchful eye. Imagine this. One night it's Frank Sinatra and the next, a shady underworld figure discussing arms deals. London was changing, and the Krays were right in the middle of it, half gangster, half celebrity. But that spotlight came with a price. Ronnie Kray was different. Unstable. Brilliant, in his own way, but volatile. He was eventually diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, but at the time, no one really knew what to do with that. He also made no secret of his homosexuality, unheard of in the 1950s underworld, where masculinity was king and homosexuality was still illegal. Ronnie surrounded himself with young men, some loyal, others intimidated. But his paranoia grew. He believed enemies were everywhere. And when Ronnie got suspicious, people got hurt. His mental state became a liability. Even Reggie, more controlled, more calculated, struggled to keep him in check. Then came the murders. The first major crack appeared in 1966. Ronnie walked into the Blind Beggar pub and shot George Cornell, right there, in front of witnesses. Cornell had ties to the rival Richardson gang. But it wasn't a street war. It was a statement. Ronnie was making it very clear, the Krays were untouchable. A year later, Reggie murdered Jack the Hat McVitie. Jack had been an associate, but he got reckless, spending money, missing appointments, bragging too much. Reggie stabbed him at a house party. It was messy, brutal. Not the work of a professional, more like a man unraveling. At this point, even those loyal to the firm started talking. The twins were spiraling. Scotland Yard had long known about the Krays. But knowing and proving are two very different things. The twins had powerful friends. People were afraid to testify. That changed with Detective Leonard Nipper Reed. He was methodical, patient. He waited years, gathering intel. Eventually, he convinced insiders to flip. One by one, the silence broke. In May 1968, police swooped in. The Krays were arrested. The trial was unlike anything Britain had seen. Armed guards. Hidden witnesses. Headlines across the nation. The verdict. Guilty. Life sentences for both twins. The Kray reign was finally over. Ronnie was declared insane and sent to Broadmoor, a psychiatric prison reserved for the most dangerous minds. He lived the rest of his life there, under heavy medication and constant surveillance. He died in 1995, from a heart attack. Reggie, on the other hand, bounced between prisons. He married while inside. He gave interviews. Wrote a book. To some, he tried to reform. To others, he never really showed remorse. In 2000, Reggie was diagnosed with terminal cancer. He was released on compassionate grounds and died just weeks later, closing a chapter of London's criminal past. The Krays didn't just disappear, they became legend. Their lives have been immortalized in books, documentaries, even Hollywood films. They've been played by actors like Tom Hardy, idolized by gangland enthusiasts, mythologized by pop culture. But beneath the suits and swagger, let's not forget the truth. They ruled with fear. They killed without hesitation. They destroyed lives, not just those they murdered, but those caught in their wake. They were a product of their environment. Yes. But they also chose violence, over and over again. And the glamour, the fame, it came at a bloody cost. Thanks for listening to Deep Divers. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, every legend starts somewhere.